Let me first thank God for the wonderful and incredible opportunity to be back at Riverside. First, to the pastor, Butler, and to your entire team here at Riverside, to each and every member of Riverside and friend from near and far, to all of the incredible musicians, from the choirs to our children that have melodiously led us in song, to every program participant. As the president of DMI, the Drum Major Institute, to be here with our partner, Union Theological Seminary, Dr. Serene Jones, and just to have the opportunity to share this day, to be with my dear friend and brother, William Wachtel, and special friends that have flown, probably come the furthest today from Israel. I won't say everything right now because momentarily you'll hear about our special honor that we're going to bestow. Let me thank each and every one of you, though, just for coming out in this weather. You know, New York is a great city, and to be with you, Deputy Inspector Griffith, and your family, to be in this city once again, to be in this pulpit where Dad shared in ministry 6 times at least. We've heard his words today. But the question becomes, what do we do? How do we take heed to what he said? Dr. Forbes, who so often, not in addition to standing in this pulpit, but Dr. Forbes, our chairman at DMI, what are we about and what should we be doing right now? You know, tomorrow will be the 29th King federal holiday in these United States of America. And so if we had to ask the question, what progress have we made as a nation? We would have to stop and say, is it time to truly celebrate? You see, I always feel that we're still observing the King holiday, not celebrating, because a celebration is a little different than an observance. You see, you celebrate when great victories occur. My dad and his team celebrated on many occasions. Our nation celebrated in 1983 when Ronald Reagan signed the King Holiday Bill, which was to be observed for the first time in 1986. So we celebrated in 1986. We celebrated in 2009 when President Barack Obama was elected, the first time the United States had come together to elect an African-American president. But it's hard to celebrate when you think about my mom and dad dedicating their lives to the eradication of poverty, racism, militarism, and violence. And let's stop for a moment and look at that analogy, because, you know, we've made strides in race, but obviously we're not there yet. So we still have a long way to go, or ways to go around race. We've made great progress. But when we look at poverty, How do we celebrate in a nation with trillions of dollars for an operating budget, just government, not talking about corporate budgets? And we have the audacity to have 60 million people living in poverty. Something is wrong with that. How do we celebrate in a great country? This is a great country, but yet we still pay women less than we pay men. There's not equality. How do we celebrate, I would ask? How do we celebrate when over 2.5 million people are in jail? And when you think about that, the vast majority, percentage-wise, of those are people of color. We are 13%, black folk that is, of the population, but 60, 70, and 80% of the jail population in many communities across this nation. Richard Pryor used to say, you know, when you go down to the courthouse looking for justice, all you'll find is just us. That's tragic, but it's still true today. That we have to address, and I must say there's a twofold responsibility. There's a responsibility for us as a community. Biblically, it says if you train up a child in the way that they should go when that child is old, they will not depart from that training. So that's our responsibility. Some have abandoned their responsibility of raising our children, but also on the government side, we don't have enough indigent care defense attorneys. And so some are not able to get justice and defense because they cannot afford it. We can become that truly great nation, but we're not there yet. On militarism, finally, and violence, what is happening in our world? You know, you cannot stomp out terrorism by terrorizing others. I think when we treat people as they truly are, human beings with compassion and understanding, and lift them up. Now, that doesn't address fanaticism. That's a different issue. But at least terrorism, it seems we ought to be able to eradicate and stop. Whether it's terrorism globally or terrorism in our own communities. You see, that starts with the love that we're not exhibiting enough of. My dad had a sermon called Levels of Love, and I'm going to end in just a second, bear with me. But in that sermon, he talked about the lowest level of love is utilitarian love, but that we should not embrace. You only love someone as long as you can use them, and when that use runs out, you love them no more. That we need to throw out of the window. Then he talked about friendship love, defined by the word philia, but that's not the highest, because you love your friend because your friend loves you. Then he talked about a mother's love, which, my God, is so beautiful. There's no love that compares to how a mother loves her child. Then he talked about romantic love, which is, my goodness. You may love, he said, the way she walks, or the way he talks. You may love the way, whatever it is. You just may have to come to the conclusion, you know, and I'm thinking about my wife right now. So I'm talking about my wife. And so sometimes I have to say, I don't totally know what it is, but she just moves me. That's a beautiful kind of love, but that is not even the highest level of love. He talked about humanitarian love. Thank God for humanitarians, women and men and corporations that just love to make a difference and help people all the time. But that, you know, you kind of love everything in general and nothing in particular. Finally, he said the greatest level of love is defined by the word agape. It's a love that seeks nothing in return and is totally unselfish. You love someone if they're young, you love them if they're old. You love them if they're rich, you love them if they're poor. You love them if they're black, you love them if they're white. You love them if they're Native American, you love them if they're Hispanic or Latino American. You love them if they're African, you love them if they're Asian. You love them because you know that God calls you to do that. And that's the kind of love we need in America if we're truly going to fulfill the dream of Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. And so let me rush to tell you this afternoon, when I was a child, my mom took me to an undergraduate institution, Antioch College. And on that college was a statue of the educator Horace Mann. And as we did our tour, and I was about 14 years old, I was compelled and struck by some words that were inscribed under the educator Horace Mann. And those words were, "Be ashamed to die until you've won a victory for humanity." Think about that. Now, we're working on a victory right now at DMI because we are dedicated, determined, and committed with Union Theological Seminary and other partners to get a new Voting Rights Act on the books. We're dedicated. You see, March 7th, many of us will be in Selma, where the march from Selma to Montgomery took place, and I hope you'll go see the movie Selma. It's an interesting portrayal, and it reintroduces Martin Luther King Jr. to a new generation and his colleagues that work with him. But March 7th, many of us will be in Selma to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. When on August 6th, when the Voting Rights Act was signed, we are going to petition Congress to create a new bill because, yes, there are restrictive rights right now on the books. Yes, there are some who appear to be making it difficult for folks to vote. We are not going to accept that. We are going to turn this nation in the direction that it should be, which is forward. It only takes a few good women and men to bring about change. So I end with this story because when I saw those words, "Be ashamed to die until you've won a victory for a minute," I said, oh my gosh, that's grandiose. It is, but you see, you can win a victory in your neighborhood. You can win a victory in your school. We can win victories in our places of worship. Some of us will win victories in our cities. Some will win victories in our states. Some may even win victories in our nation. And some will win victories in our world. But be ashamed to die until you've done a little something to make the world in which we all must live a little better than it was when you arrived. Thank you. God bless you.